Okay, Bismillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah, Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome to week 2. Today, inshallah, again, we will be looking at two letters today. Inshallah, we will be looking at the letters Ha and letter Ghain. Again, both of these letters come from the same articulation point. They are pronounced from the same place, and they are both throat letters. So last time on Friday, I did mention that the throat is divided into three sections. So you've got the top, the middle, and the bottom. And the letters that we did on Friday last time was the letter Ha and the Ain, and they both came from the middle of the throat. The letter Ha and the letter Ghain come from the top of the throat. Okay. Now, the way I like to remember them is they both have a dot at the top, so they both come from the top of the throat. Okay. Now, the next question, of course, is how do we recognize when we are pronouncing something from the top of the throat? How do we identify that makhraj or that articulation point? Sometimes you need to think of it as though, when you, for example, when you're gargling salt water, or you're gargling mouthwash or something, the place where you gargle, that is the makhraj of the letter Ha. Okay. And the letter Ghain. So they're both produced from that spot. And I think most of us are quite familiar with gargling. So inshallah, I hope that's going to be enough to kind of direct you to the right place, inshallah, in the throat. Okay. Now, the letter Ha and the letter Ghain, when we are looking at them, the letter Ha, let's bring up my image. The letter Ha is, when we join it with the letter before, and it is sakina, it is one of those letters, again, that we prolong, and it is a letter of hams. So we hear the breath. Okay. So for the letter Ha, again, we are relying a lot on our breath to produce the sound of this letter. We say eh. Okay. So it's a heavy sounding letter. This is the first time actually that we're seeing a heavy sounding letter. So far, we've seen a lot of light letters, and today's our first day that we're looking at a letter which is actually what we call musta'ali, or it is a letter of isti'ala. And to make the sound of a heavy letter, it is different to making the sound of a light letter. When we're looking at light letters, for example, the ba or the ta, I mentioned about how your mouth opens a little bit horizontally, but it also opens a little bit vertically. For example, when we said ba, ta, we had that nice light ending, the a ending. With the letter Ha, to get the heavy ending, this time we're not saying ha. If you say ha, this would be wrong. Okay, this would be incorrect. We want to say ha, ha. Okay, to pronounce the letter Ha, the way that you achieve this is, first of all, you rely more on your jaw moving downwards, and you do not really pull your lips out at all. Okay, so it's more of a downwards movement, or when you open the mouth, you drop the jaw downwards. Ha, ha, ha. Okay. Not only that, but you'll have to make sure that the back of the tongue is slightly raised, and we haven't done this with any of the other letters because they were all light letters. For this to sometimes it's quite difficult to tell whether you've raised the back of your tongue. And sometimes a way to maybe guide you is if you imagine yourself going to the dentist, and sometimes when you're in the dentist chair and you sit back and you sort of go, oh, because you're leaning back, the back of the tongue kind of drifts back, and you say, oh. So it's that kind of endings that you want when you say, oh, ha, oh, ha. Okay, so you want that ah ending. Also, imagine that when we normally speak, when we're normally pronouncing letters, especially the light letters, we allow the sound of our voice to just come straight through and in between our lips and straight out. It's like a clean passageway for the voice. When we say the heavy letters, we try not to make the voice come straight out, but we kind of direct it upwards in the mouth. Okay. So imagine that you're trying, instead of speaking straight out, you're trying to speak behind the upper two front teeth, behind the upper incisors. And you're trying to make the sound of your voice go that way. Okay. So this is how it gets a little bit of a ring to it. So instead of saying ha, we're saying ha, 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 eh, eh. When we pronounce it with a dhamma, now the dhamma is not any different compared to the light letters in terms of how our lips are. Our lips are still rounded. We still have the gap between the lips. So that stays intact. But again, we're thinking about the back of the tongue being raised. We're thinking about the direction of a voice being, behind our upper two front teeth. So we say hu, Hu, ha, hu, ha, hu. Okay, and for the khi, you'll notice that when you say it with a kasra, when you add the e sound at the end and you say khi, it may not sound as heavy as the others. Okay, and that's okay. Okay, it doesn't have to be as heavy as the others. The kasra, the e ending, does kind of weaken the ha a little bit, so it doesn't sound as heavy, but it's still heavy. Ha, hu, khi, ha, hu, khi, Now, one of the common mistakes that are made with this letter is that sometimes people say ka, right? And this happens when they block the makhraj. In other words, they seal off. When they're trying to pronounce the ha, they seal it off completely. And that's what you don't want to do. You want to try and keep the airway a little bit open. Okay, so the breath can keep passing. At no point do you shut it off. So we don't say ka, ku, ki, ak, right? You keep it open, say there's a continuous passage. You can hear the breath. Ha, hu, hi, okay. The difference when we come to the letter ghain is the letter ghain is a letter of jahr, which means that now we are relying on the sound of our voice and not the breath. So it's like gargling still, but instead of gargling with the breath, you're gargling with the sound of your voice. You continue with the voice. L, L. Can you see? It's also one of those letters that we prolong. It is a letter that we stay on, we drag it a little bit, and it's still heavy. So we're doing the same thing in terms of the back of the tongue is raised, the direction of the sound of the voice is all the same. L. With a fatha, it's ra. Again, that movement, the downward movement of the mouth, the dropping of the jaw. Ra, ra, ru, ri, ra, ru, ri. When you say the ru, still you got the circling of the lips. Ra, ru, ri. We don't want to be saying ra, ru, ri. Okay, it's the heavy r ending that we want when it's got a fatha. Ra, ru, ri, l. Ra, ru, ri, l. Okay. Some examples from the Quran that we have is, for example, in the word khalidin. Again, this is one with a fatha. Ha, khalidin, khalidin. Okay. Another example with when the ha is sakina is when we say yakhruj. See, when you say yakhruj, you'll say ya, and then you'll drop the lips and relax them from the sides. So you don't say yah, because then the ha sounds light. You don't say yah. You drop the slight smile that you have. Ya, yakhruj, yakhruj. Okay. But an example for the letter ghain is one example here that we have, and we have two examples of ghain in this couple of words that I'm covering. We have the one with the fatha and we have the one with the sakin. Okay. So we have the one with the fatha, gha. Remember, we can't say gha, gha, ghayri, ghayri. And the second ghain, we've got to hold it. Okay, remember this is one of those letters that we drag, just how we drag the ha. They are both rahawa letters and we stay on them both when they have a sukoon. غير المغضوب غير المغضوب غير المغضوب. Okay, so inshallah, I hope that's beneficial for you. Keep practicing. There will be a link. There is already a link available for you to practice with. Jazakumullah khairan, and I hope to see you tomorrow where we will be looking at the letter Dal. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.